Hi, today we're gonna take a little walk and a little tour to see what's starting to grow here in the garden in the spring. Welcome to Self-Sufficient Urban Gardening. Let's start with this little corner here. In this little corner here, I shaded it because the sun, even in the spring, is starting to be quite strong, at least during the midday time of the day. And here I have honey nut squash growing. I have one little carrot growing here from nowhere. And I also have some potatoes back there and spaghetti squash that I transferred from another place over here. So this is just in this little corner, and as you can see, all of these here are one butternut squash and honey nut squash, and you can see they're all together growing here. Let's take a look at this raised garden bed here, starting with sweet potato right down here, and then you can see here butternut squash and cantaloupe. You can tell how we like butternut squash and spaghetti squashes, right? The leaves here are so big. This means that the roots hit a pocket of the compost that I had. I composted everywhere in these raised garden beds, but you can tell the difference between the size of these leaves and the leaves of the other ones over there. These are much bigger, probably because they hit a very nice little pocket of compost. And as you can see, it's starting to cover all this area here, and even going down, you can see here, this is the cantaloupe starting to go down. Also the butternut squash starting to go down here. And as you continue, you can see a little forest of tomatoes growing right here. And on the other side of the tomatoes, here on the other side of the tomatoes, you can see I have lettuce down here, and I have protected it against the raccoons that are coming to dig everywhere in my backyard. So I put these wire meshes here, and also down here, also protected from the raccoons, are more honey nut squashes that are starting to grow. In this little area here, I have lots of stuff growing. This is really a permaculture where everything grows together. You can see going down here is butternut squash, and these here inside this little shaded area here are broccoli, and you can see that the broccoli is growing quite nicely, and we'll have lots of broccoli leaves to eat. I don't know if you guys eat broccoli leaves, but we do, and they're pretty good. Also in there I have lettuce, which is hiding underneath the broccoli.
And I can see.
Yeah, and here I have peas. I have a few little plants of peas. Right next to it I have green beans, and then I have more butternut squash on this side. And I also have a little tomato plant just starting to grow right here. Take a look at the peas here that are growing. You see a few here starting to grow, but there's more here. All of these are peas. And then here I have my green beans. They're still young, but they're growing. They're starting to grow. And here is my butternut squash. You can see it's starting to come outside of the raised garden bed. And then if you come a little bit more, you'll see there's a little tomato seedling starting to grow here in the middle of all the squashes. And also here in the corner I have more butternut squash growing. By now you should be asking yourself, aren't you tired of butternut squashes? Well, that's why I'm growing honey nut squashes. All this little area here are honey nut squashes that are growing just beside my fig tree right there. And yes, this is a bunch of them, and they are competing for nutrients in this little raised garden bed. You can see my raised garden bed here. And yes, there are a few of them growing in here, but they're doing pretty well. Look at the size of the leaves. They're pretty big, which means that all of them are doing pretty well. So let's see how they will produce later this year. Well, there's also this little shaded area here where I have some potatoes growing and also bell peppers. Finally, I'm growing bell peppers again. I've had good success a couple years ago, and now I'm gonna try again, and they're doing pretty well. And finally, I have these raised garden beds here in the back of my backyard where I'm growing some tomatoes. There are 2 here, and these are carrots. They've been growing already for a few months, so they're basically ready to go to be harvested. There's 1 lettuce here which is now already flowering. If we left it here for too long, we didn't need it. We have plenty on the other side, so it's already flowering. We'll get the seeds later. And obviously more butternut squash on this side, not to mention another tomato plant here on this side of this raised garden bed, and some beets right there. This is exactly where I grew beets last year, so I'm growing beets again. They're still young, they've been there for a couple months, but I'm still gonna let them grow a little more. And you can see what's invading here is one of my peach trees. The branches are coming this way, and while they have peaches on them, I'm going to let them do this, but soon I will prune them and not let them, of course, overcome and shade my raised garden bed. I actually also have some potatoes growing right here, so maybe that will also give us some nice harvests later on. And you're probably asking yourself, why do you have all these metal wires everywhere in your backyard? Well, that's because raccoons are coming every morning to dig around my raised garden beds. So I'm trying to protect the places where the plants are coming from, their roots, so that the raccoons don't dig and kill the roots of all my plants. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll give you some peas if you subscribe to the channel. And enjoy your garden!